did we get up, we make? How did we get up, get up? How did we get up, get up? How did we worldwide get up? When I stop and take a look around, and I see what's really going down. Seeing all the things that's going down. Seeing all the things, yeah. I wonder how did we make a ghetto of the world? Yeah. Everywhere I look, someone's in pain, but nobody wants to take the blame. I wonder why. Tell me, how did we make a ghetto of the world? And tell me, why did we not see we could be blinded by our own greed? How did we make a ghetto of the world? And tell me, how did we lose sight of something perfect, so perfect and right? How did we? This is not the way we ghetto of the world. Before we really start to wake up, there's a bitter taste in the air. Those who care, we've got to beware. Innocence is losing its face. Soon it could be gone without trace. How did we get up, make a ghetto of the world? Gotta make a get up. Heads of state can't find common ground. We debate, but no one backs down. Me, my brothers suffering each day. Life too precious to throw away. How did we get up, make a ghetto of the world? Get up. Oh, no. How did we get up, make a ghetto of the world? Get up. I wonder why we couldn't see it. Wonder why we couldn't feel it. Why we really took for granted all the seeds that you planted. How did this is not the way we get of the world. Tell me, how long will it take us before we really start to wait? And tell me, why did we not see we could be blinded by our own greed? How did we don't understand it? This is not the way we get of the world. Before we really start to wake up, how did we get up? Get up. Oh, how did we? I won't get up. Get up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing? I hope you're looking forward to the weekend. It's me, Tony Dada, your soul brother from another mother, saying that I'm so pleased to be here. So good morning to you, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are on the planet. Welcome to our Friday Mind Reset Live. We are here once again. This month, we are looking at the theme of mindset. And today, we are going to be talking and treating the topic mental health. And wow, as if we are right on the money, unfortunately, I should say, I just heard the news about an MP, David Amis, I believe. who died and was stabbed to death. Did you hear about that? And I don't know under what circumstances, but I think there is a mental health issue related to this. That's what I've been hearing anyway. It'd be great for us to talk about this in today's session. So before we begin, I'd like to say a big welcome to our Facebook audience and our YouTube audience. I hope you enjoy this evening. We have a special guest because I'm not an expert where mental health is concerned. And so I am pleased to have our dear soul sister, Suzette, come and join us and talk a little bit about an area that she has worked, a profession that she has worked in for so many years. So, as I said, for our Facebook and our YouTube audience, and just generally for anyone who might be tuning in, our evening is designed in such a way that we have two parts to the evening. The first part is open to all of our guests, so you get a sense and a flavor of what we are doing and what we're discussing. And then part two is when we go private, which is exclusive for our members, where they get to ask any pertaining or particular questions that is on their mind. And so just before we get into this, just to put it into context, why are we doing these evenings every Friday? Like, why am I here every Friday at 8 o'clock doing these Friday Mind Reset lives? So in context, it's really based and born out of this book, The GPS System, which I wrote many years ago. And GPS, in fact, I'm working on my next edition, and it's really the GPS thinking system. And GPS stands for Grow Personal Success, because we all want to do and become and have success. We all do. Whether you're 6 or 66, everybody has a vision of success. But depending on how you think, the thoughts that you have, that will determine whether you are able to realize success in a way that grows you and nurtures you. And what do I mean? You see, through the GPS system, the basic premise that I introduced is that there are 5 principles or 5 key areas that you need to give attention to when you're even thinking about what success means. So there was a time when people thought that being successful meant just making money. And so they would sacrifice their health, they might sacrifice their relationship, they may sacrifice their mental health, all in the pursuit of money. Then when they get that money, they use that money to pay for solicitors' fees because their wife or their partner is seeking a divorce. They have to have all kind of treatment because their mental state is a mess, and they have to have hospital treatment because their health is a mess. And so, yes, you guessed it, these are the 5 key areas: your mental and emotional state, your physical state, your health and well-being, the state of your relationships, the state of your mind, and the state of your soul. And what this philosophy really shares is that when you begin to give attention to each of these areas, then you are able to hold yourself together. You are able to then pursue success in a meaningful and holistic way. And so each week I come and I will speak, perhaps sometimes with a guest. And each month, for 5 months, we will be treating one of these pillars so that you can gain an insight and understanding as to how important it is to look at yourself in this expanded way, which is really based on spirituality, knowing that you're not just mind, body, and soul, but you're an expansion, an expansive spirit And when you recognize who and what you are in your full entirety, then you can begin to manifest in that magnificence that you are. So I hope that's put into context what we are what we are doing this evening and what we're going to be speaking about with Suzanne. We've only got a couple more weeks to the end of the series. So we've been here for 4 months. We've probably been here for almost practically all year, actually, when I think about it, every month. But this is the last in the series. And then we're going to be taking a short break, getting ready, preparing for 2022. And boy, is it going to be amazing. So on that note, I see Shawnette saying good night. Can we just put a little comment in the chat box just to confirm that you can see me and you can hear me? Because I may have been just talking away and y'all can't even hear me. So a thumbs up or just something just to let me know that, okay, we're good, says Shawnette. Okay, so you know what? Without any further ado, why don't we just jump straight in and invite our sister Shawnette to come and talk with us. Okay, so there we go, straight in. Miss Suzette, are you in the house? Maybe not.
I'm here. Hi, Tony.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Very
Great
good.
stuff. So welcome. I want to start off, I just jump straight in. I don't know if you heard about the news with this MP.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
You hear about
shocking.
it?
I did. It's shocking, really shocking news. And
I heard, is there any connection with, in terms of, whoever committed the atrocity, I'm hearing that there's a health issue, a mental health issue there.
It's funny because I was listening out to hear that. I didn't hear that actually. No? But chances are it's highly likely. I mean, it doesn't
what
sound...
a normal person walks into.
I was just going to say, that's exactly the point that you're making. I would agree with that. It's very worrying. But, it's so sad because these people, they put themselves out there in public service, and that's their sort of risk that is taken. It's so sad though. It can just, your heart goes out to his family, really. And
I mean, he was a serious guy. I mean, he's been an MP since 1983.
Yeah, nearly 40 years, I think.
I mean, this is someone who literally, as you say, has been a public servant. And I mean, we'll come into that a little bit more in detail, because really tonight we wanted to talk about mental health. And I mean, the reason why I mentioned this is because I want to ask the question that do we take care of our mental health like we take care of our physical health?
In my opinion, no.
Okay.
I don't think we do.
And do you think we should?
I think we certainly should. We probably should take care of it more. One thing I think I need to say is that we all have to be aware that we all have mental health. We all have mental health. It's where.
Okay. So now I hear you, and people might, just like me, have gone silent for a minute thinking, because I think we've all had a wrong interpretation about those two words. When we hear mental health, we think, oh, it's just for those people over there that they got a problem. What you're saying is that we all, just like we have physical health, there's mental health. And anyway, I mean, we'll come on to that in a moment. But I think you caught on to what I was trying to say really quickly, actually, because... Well, you know how I do.
What I was trying to say is that you're quite right. Straight away, mental health, people think negative, bad mental health. But you can have good mental health or bad mental health. Okay, so you tell us. I mean,
tell us a little bit about who Suzette is, because how do you know this? I mean, what do you know about mental health? I mean, have you worked in this
Yeah.
space? Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
Suzette, where you're coming
Yeah.
from.
So I've been working in mental health now 14 years, 15 years. In the sense, I'm not a clinician, but I work in more the rehabilitation side of mental health, working closely with the psychiatrist, the psychologist.
Okay, so you might know a thing or two.
Say that again?
You might know a thing or two about.
I think I might do, yes.
All right. So you work with these psychologists, and you work with the clients in terms of rehabilitation and that sort of thing. So you're equally working quite closely with these patients, right?
I work with the patients, literally. Right. And I'm most of my experience is working with people who have what you call secondary care. So they have psychosis and have usually been hospitalized. So they've been in hospital and all the sort of connotations that we were alluding to earlier. They have all the stigma to face as well that's associated with having poor mental health. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me something, Suzette. I mean, first of all, thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us and bring some light onto this matter. Because as you know, what I'm about is making or introducing this new concept, this new way of looking at ourselves as a constituted being, where we are to be responsible not just for our physical health, but for our mental health and for the health of our relationships with ourselves as well as with others. And we're also responsible for the health of our finances and our money. And we are also responsible for our soul. So now, these are 5 areas, and we just touched on the first 2, physical and mental. And what's interesting is I remember 40 years ago, and in the Nigerian community, my uncles, a lot of my uncles, you would know which uncle was coming through the door, not by his face, but by the side of his stomach. Yeah, because they had this notion, and hear me out, because it's about how we think. They had this idea that the way you showed wealth was by the size of your stomach. You know them ones there?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. And so what my point is, they had completely the wrong idea about physical health. And so, of course, if they got the wrong idea, what started happening? Well, they all started dying. And then everyone was like, okay, perhaps we should take care of our physical health. Today, fast forward, and everyone knows, it's like it's more common than not that people know that, you know what, it's good to think about your health, what you eat, exercise, etc., etc. Now, I use that as an example to say, I feel like we're almost in exactly the same place now with mental health. What do you say to that?
I would so agree. And Tony, I am at the age where I don't know if you remember, I don't think you're of that age, but maybe. Do you remember Jane Fonda years ago when she started the physical exercise thing? Right. And to me, that's around the time everyone became really conscious of the importance of it. And I think we need something like that with mental health. I really feel that, because to me, there's no health really without good mental health. So we really need to promote that more.
Well, that's really interesting. So what you're saying is, because actually you can be as fit as a fiddle, but if you lost your mind, you're in trouble.
Seriously. I mean, that's a reality, isn't it?
Wow.
That's a real reality.
So tell me, if that is the case, why is it that we don't? Even when the statistics show us that this is something that we need to do, meaning by the time someone realizes that they may have a mental health problem, it's kind of too late.
And I think that's it. It's a really difficult area to work with and to identify fully what is required. I think we're starting to get there. It doesn't help that not just within our cultures that there's stigma. I think there's stigma about mental health across the board. So even in this society, you know, if you look at the newspaper, the way people who have experienced mental health are spoken about, they're murderers, they'll, it's always someone schizophrenic. It's really poor and negative publicity, which is scaremongering, because most people with secondary mental illness, they're more likely to harm themselves than to harm other people. So really negative stereotypes doesn't help.
Let me ask a question then. I mean, physical health was about taking responsibility for your body, yeah? Regardless of what the adverts would say to come and get, the Mars bars or the Cadbury chocolates, those companies are promoting their products and they will put out the ads to say, come buy me, right? But if we're taking care of our mental health, we are supposed to be responsible for our actions, right?
I agree, 100%.
So equally, when it comes to mental health, should it be the case that, isn't it a sign of mental health that we take responsibility so that we don't find ourselves being so gullible to the stereotyping and the false or negative messaging that the media are promoting? Isn't that a sign of weak mental health?
Yes, and of course, and I think things are starting to move in the right direction. So I mentioned stigma, and stigma often means people don't even talk about it. Now people talk about mental health, and a lot of that, if we might as well really accept that the young royals have done a lot around talking more openly about mental health. And
really? Do you think that interview had such a positive impact?
I think, it's not, to be fair, it's not just, you're talking about the interview with Oprah.
Yeah.
I think it did, but don't forget, before that, both the princes were starting to talk about mental health because of their experience, especially after losing their mother, and they were more open. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I think even within I'd say our Black communities and Asian communities, actually, there's still a lot of stigma where family members are usually ashamed of someone within their family. I've got mental illness, so it's still there. But I think platforms like this is great because we can talk about it openly.
Wow. Okay, so you say that things are moving in the right direction.
Starting to, I think.
Yeah. Starting to.
Yeah.
But I want to question that. So the royals have started to open up, but has COVID taken us backwards?
That's a brilliant question. COVID.
I had to go there. I had to go there.
COVID, it's been a global thing, isn't it? And I think it's probably more to the long COVID that a lot of people don't fully know, not the scientists don't fully know how it's going to affect people. So far, it seems as it's affecting people in different ways, but it is affecting people with their mental health as well.
Okay, so
but it was also what you alluded to was the fact that people were locked down for so long. It's impacted their mental health as well.
Well, the thing is, I remember we were, I can only say blessed, that we had an event back in February last year, which was really around helping those that attended to really get their mind set positively. And you were one of the people that attended, and so did your good soul sister, Laura.
Yes.
And I say that because it was interesting that when COVID struck, I mean, both of you and Laura work in the mental health sector, and we were concerned to the point that we swung into action. No one asked us to. And we talked about and began to start making calls to the people on our mailing list because we were concerned with their mental health. That was back in March last year. We had no idea that this madness was going to continue.
No.
But even then, people were so worried and so frightened and so fearful. This is why I asked the question that what has COVID done? And funny enough, as if Laura is psychic and knew what I was going to be asking, she just stated that 1 in 4 people suffer with a mental health problem in their life.
Yeah,
anxiety and depression has increased since the COVID pandemic. So the question again is, are we moving forward, or has this monster set us back?
I would say it set us back, but I think what's good is that people are having conversations about mental health. So that started before COVID. So if people are suffering now, they're more likely to say that they are or come forward, whereas maybe a few years ago they would have suffered in silence and their mental health would just decline. That's
so tell me, do you know, can you give us give us some kind of indications as to what are the things that begin to contribute to people having poor mental health? Because it seems to be one of these blind spot things that you're unaware until it hits you in the face. I was speaking to someone earlier this week, a gentleman of the age of 40. It was in his late 40s. And he said that he had a mental breakdown at the age of 40.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. There's obvious stuff.
Can you give us some examples? So
burnout.
To be able to have a checklist, as it were.
Yeah, burnout. There are some forms of mental illness that are hereditary, that it's in the family. Some people are prone to it, but it usually takes some sort of trigger or event in life events that will cause it. It's things like, for example, you've got a diagnosis, emotionally unstable disorder. Quite often that's dysfunctional family events that, someone.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll come back to that one in a moment. You mentioned burnout, and I think Lloyd put in the group, the chat, that stress.
Yeah. So I'll have a look at the chat while we're talking.
It's good. Yeah. I mean, because we really want to tap into your knowledge here. So when we talk about stress, and I think that was the case in this gentleman's, in his case. So he's got to 40. He had been chasing the dream.
Yes.
Chasing the illusion, house, car, money, 2.2 kids, wife, and all that sort of thing, only to find out that it just took him out. So I want to touch on stress in relation to burnout. As I was saying earlier on, I mean, how do we change even that narrative, in that it's not all about chasing the money? Because in many cases, what people are chasing are just the illusions that have been put in front of their minds, which makes them act in this way, and then it's not sustainable. And the first thing that goes is you lose your mind, or your mind is susceptible. So what's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with you, obviously. I mean, I've been rolling with you now for over a year. And for me, especially recently when you referred to our vision and goal sheet as a life book, I think it is, because it's all about that, getting that balance right. So,
okay, now you're going somewhere. So am I hearing you say that? Because what I want to do is, I don't want this to be a sad, dark evening today. I want us to be able to highlight the problems, or the potentials, but also offer some suggestions by way of what people can do. And what I'm hearing you say from what you just said is that on the one hand, there is society and the media with its pressures, mental pressures, in terms of suggesting to us in that fashion where we don't realize that we're being brainwashed to achieve and strive for all of these things. So we're focused outwardly,
yes,
as opposed to engaging in some practice that allows you to be centered in what's important by looking inwardly.
So it's interesting because I was going to come to the point you're at now in terms of my greater understanding of that now since joining the MINDreSET and all the things that I've learned on that, because I do feel strongly now that individuals need to be much more aware of what they can do and in order to be responsible for their own mental health. And all the things you're talking about in terms of, I would say, meditating, all the things that you need to do to help and support your mental health, because it's not all about doing, as you often say, it's about being. And in order to be, you have to spend that time looking after yourself, finding out what the things, a lot of the stuff I do with the rehabilitation with people with mental health is help them to look after their well-being.
Really?
Look at the things. What are the things that you need in place to keep your mental health on an even keel?
Wow.
So we're starting to look at that already.
Wow. And so I'm almost hearing as you speak that for many of us, for most of us, unless someone has introduced us to this different way of being, we take what we are and how we're constituted for granted.
Yes, I agree. I think we do.
Wow.
I mean, as I said, I've been in mental health for a long while, but even for myself to a degree, I think I probably did.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm hearing, and I want to sort of reiterate the point, is it would seem like a good insurance policy to have some kind of routine in your life that you do just as a way of life.
Yes.
That is solely for the purpose of looking after your mental health.
I would 110% agree with that. Totally.
Wow. So in the same way that you randomly talk to people and you say, oh, I go to the gym 2 times a week, once, 2, 3, whatever it is, it makes no difference. The point is that you have taken responsibility for yourself, especially in this COVID period where so many people are working from home and just sitting in front of their computer for 6 hours straight or whatever. You recognize that you have to do something to get your muscles working or else you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And so by the same token, you must take responsibility for your mind to ensure that it's stimulated in various different ways.
So true. And in fact, I think I vaguely remember you saying that around the time the lockdown started, that we were having a conversation, and that analogy between physical and mental health and needing to exercise to keep the body going, it really rang true to me, because I think around the time lockdown started, I'd been away, I was out of the country, came back,
Right.
And it was boom into this incredibly weird way of being, working, doing life. And I felt the same. I was like sitting around, I needed to go out for a walk and all of that. Look how many people go out for walks now. So that's been, COVID. Yeah. But it's also, what do you do to keep your mind working correctly?
Yeah. Wow. So you also mentioned meditation as a tool Because what I'm recognizing is that as part of being responsible, it's for us to have a toolbox that we go to for these various different things that we can use for our physical health, our mental health, and so forth. You're smiling. I'm
smiling because the tools I use, I call it a toolbox with my clients as well.
Oh, really?
I'm smiling.
Okay. So I could come and work in your profession. I've got the skills already.
No comment, Tony.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Of course you could. You actually would be, yeah, be interesting, but yeah.
Because I think a Dickie Bird told me that you might have adopted or kind of tweaked some of my tools and just work them with some of your clients, right?
You know what? It could be done. I mean, whether or not the NHS would
embrace
welcome that, yeah. But really, I think a lot of it could. I mean, it's joining this platform that I learned so much more about the mind and body connection, and there is a connection. It would be better if we were able to use our minds to help keep ourselves well than to always be going for the medical, the chemical fixes that medicine provides. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that I think that all mental health conditions can be made better by doing meditation. I don't necessarily, there are some that you need medication for, but the percentage of that is probably less than we think. It's just that it is quicker to write a prescription because there's so many people suffering with mental health difficulties.
So if we are living in this new era that I call the new era of spirituality, meaning, and it sounds, it's simple enough in that what I'm saying is that in this new era, we are now to begin to take responsibility for the things that we can't see as well as the things that we can see.
It's a very good way of putting it, yeah.
Simply that. So your mental health, you can't see your mind. But as you said, it's more important than even the things that you can see, which is your physical body. And you also said something that I'd like to touch on, and we're going to unpick this a little bit, because in this space of taking responsibility for ourselves, that's what I believe really has happened. So, put it into context. From 2007, from 2013, when I returned, I was always part of my mantra, and my message was wake up and take responsibility, because everything looks the same, but nothing is the same. And I believe that from 2013 right up to 2020, I'm saying it for 7 years, and then 2020, it hit. The world changed. And who hadn't been taking precautionary measures to look after themselves and wake up to taking responsibility? You got slapped around the face by Mother Nature or the Creator, because it really hit a lot of people.
Hard, really hard, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to touch on is in looking at what we can do and how we can take responsibility. You touched on family. Like, I don't know how you use the term. If you could repeat that phrase so I can say it and sound all intellectual.
Which one? And family?
Yeah, so you made a phrase, you stated a phrase that is the title given to mental health issues that are born out of trauma from.
Yeah, I think I was talking about emotionally unstable disorders. Well,
That's often the one, emotionally unstable disorders. Because I remember that I saw somewhere that the damage and the cost to the NHS that is incurred as a result of the damage that's done to children as a result of their parents breaking up is quite significant. Can you share some light on that?
it's really just, I suppose, around the dysfunctionality quite often that's in families, and particularly where you're looking at breakups. And then, as you said, children are exposed to that, and the damage it means that when they become adults, quite often they're not able to function well as adults emotionally because
Okay,
of the damage that's been done.
Okay, so but then let's join the dots then, because on this TED talk that I was listening to, they were saying that more than 50% of marriages end in divorce. So if you are saying that, and not all divorces break up, you know, in a bad way, but
no, not anymore, which is good, I think.
It's a big number, but isn't that a bit alarming and concerning that we could literally have a conveyor belt of dysfunctional young people who are coming out as a result of relationship breakup? And I'm speaking as someone who's experienced it. You know, my relationship breakdown was, it wasn't bad between us, but it was bad for me in the sense that my daughter was not given the opportunity to get the understanding from both parents. Her mother was just like, so she had 7 years of both of her parents being around, and then in one day, it all changed. And being Nigerians, back in those days, no one would allow her to have the understanding, and I didn't have access to her. So, and that's caused trauma. So I'm using that.
And that's the word, trauma. And I think that's really what will lead to, I would call, a conveyor belt of young people who are waiting sometimes for months to get help from the mental health system for young adults. There's it's really not well funded. So there's absolutely loads. And it's interesting because you were just talking about relationship breakup. And I think in recent years, couples, I think, are making more of an effort to do it amicably so it doesn't affect the children that much. And for me, I think even sometimes it's so easy to go for a breakup without considering the emotional impact on the children. So that's something that we should all consider. But I do think it's already really bad. It's already awful. There's so many young people that, we're talking about all sorts of disorders. It's not just the emotionally unstable. Some of these young people who suffer with eating disorders, that's just another way of trying to control things where they couldn't control while they were growing up because, their parents broke up in not a very nice way,
I mean, this is, I find it heartbreaking as someone who's actually experienced it. It broke my heart back then, and there was nothing I could do. I couldn't drag their mother to say, sit down and have a conversation. But I found it to be, and it was one of the reasons that enraged me and allowed me to use that rage in a constructive way to want to fight for the rights of young people, those who didn't have a voice. That's why my not-for-profit organization was called Urban Voice, because it's about giving the voice to those that were denied it, And I've seen how just that trauma that was left untreated has impacted and affected, my daughter way past, for years after. So you're absolutely right. It does have an effect.
Concern. It's a concern, and I don't think it's improved in terms of a lot of young people having this mental difficulties that's untreated, which is what you just said, because there isn't a capacity.
So we have to do something for ourselves.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
In short, yeah.
This is the solution, i.e. that we have to begin to practice the art of taking responsibility. Yeah. Surely that's the only way.
I think that's a start, because we need to realize that no one else can do it for us. You have to do it yourself. And a part of that is what I love with what we're about is we talk about mind reset. So that is, being responsible for your mind and that emphasis around the mind. So I love it because that's what we
because I hadn't actually thought about it like that, but when you say it, mind reset, you can actually almost visualize resetting your mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is something that we should do. When I was putting that program together and the title, I saw it like the same way anyone who has a car has to annually do an MOT on the car. Even if the car seems like it's driving, and if you've got a car, you know your car, it feels like everything's okay. And then you take it. I remember the last time I took my car for an MOT, I thought everything's fine. Only to find out that my steering was slightly skewed, and so ever so slightly, but it was leaning to the left. And so as a result, it was putting undue pressure on that tire, which made that tire fall.
Yeah.
You can relate. So I'm like, wow, if I didn't have to have an MOT, I'd just be driving the car thinking I'm good, everything's fine. And our mind is just like that.
Just the same. It's just the same. Definitely. We do need to be more aware of that. And I think, as I say, it's about talking more openly about our minds and acknowledging that sometimes it's not always at its best. Things go out of kilter. But just like our physical health isn't all, so it's making sure it's in line. We see it in the same way.
Yeah, but that,
or more importantly.
But that sentence that you just made is really part of the problem. We make sure that we see it in the same way, but this is invisible.
Yeah,
there lies the problem.
Can't see it. Yeah, I hear you.
There lies the problem.
So how can we make it all more tangible? By talking about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. By talking about it, and also by not just talking about it, but creating a toolbox. Because as I think, as Laura said, 1 in 4 of us will be affected. However, just like when you go to the gym and you do a workout, someone who regularly goes to the gym and makes it part of their lifestyle, we're not saying that you won't get sick. But even when you do get sick, your body will be in a healthier state to be able to fight or resist that, that condition.
Of course.
And similarly for the mind.
Because if you're constantly reviewing your toolbox, and you know what I'm thinking when we're talking about the toolbox, I'm thinking about our vision and goal sheets.
Right.
It's really, I was working with someone last night on their toolbox. The vision and goal sheet. But if you are constantly looking at that pillar that looks at your mental health will force you to be aware of what's going on there. And it's incredible because I actually do that with clients. But until joining this, I didn't really do it for myself.
Wow.
Not really.
That is crazy. Like, what a crazy confession, because here you are.
Confession, but it's true.
In the profession for 15 plus years.
However, I thought my mental health was okay.
That's the point, right?
Yes.
So everybody thinks their mental health is okay. Everybody's talking about mental health, but talking about the other person.
That is the issue. That is it. But knowing, as I do now, and I've always known really that everyone has mental health, but because I thought my mental health was good, I didn't feel I needed to.
Wow, you know what? That brings me to this statement that you probably have heard me saying quite frequently recently, that in this new era of spirituality, it's not about talking your game or talking your life. It's about proving your life.
You always say that, Tony.
But don't you think this relates here? Rather than, because everybody says, I'm okay, I'm fine. Well, no, but how about let there be a test or something that you have to do to prove that your mental health is okay. And when I say prove, I don't mean that, you know, you have to prove to others people. The proof is yourself. Meaning, you know, if you are always complaining, for example, that ain't a good sign. If you always are criticizing other people, that ain't a good sign.
Don't get me started now. I know.
I want to get you started. That's why
I know where you're going. There's so many people that you come across and you think, you know, it's almost like programmed to be always criticizing other people. And to me, those are signs. I'm with you. I'm sorry. So maybe those are the things that are, but it is a difficult one, because how do you challenge or question? So
I guess you just give them an invitation to do our.
Well, to me, that's the simplest way to do it, really.
You know, on a serious note, though, I think that we just might have hit on something here, because I think inviting people to our 5-day abundance mind reset challenge is a great way for people to, what's the word I'm looking for? Anonymously, just kind of do the test without, you know, and check themselves. Do you have a poverty mindset? You know,
all of those sort of questions. Yeah. I think that is a good start, actually, to start finding out what type of mindsets people have. Do you constantly criticize other people, or are you forgiving? You know, all those sort of questions that will kind of get people getting an idea of how their mind is set. And if it's in a healthy way, I mean, we'd have to sit down and work out the type of questions to elicit.
You know what? I think that really isn't a bad idea at all. You know, so we do the 5-day abundance mind reset, the 5-day challenge. And in there, as part of that, we hit people up with, this is your mindset, you know, fact checker, or, you know, this is your test your mental health. Because to take it in a more kind of broader context, as you were speaking, what came to mind was that phrase, that passage in the Bible, it says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Yeah, which kind of links to what the mind reset is all about. But it also had me thinking that, and I'm going to take it real deep now, because this week, for the first time ever, and I'm talking about probably the first time in 39 years, I've been accused severally that I'm not bringing spirituality into our topic enough. Can you imagine? Which is great. I'm not there.
Yeah.
So, because the abundant mindset is actually, I believe, how God intended for all of us
to
think.
And
that's the mindset we're supposed to have. But it's because of the crap that we receive, whether it be through in the family, you know, broken homes, mum and dad going at each other, doing all kind of madness, trying to kill themselves and putting children in trauma. You know, school educational system telling you cannot be this, or you know, society and doing its thing in the media. Now we then, unbeknown to us, embrace or adopt a different mindset. So in a way, that's what we need to return to.
I think that's what we're doing anyway, what you're doing, your platform anyway. But if we want to drill it down to the mindset and the mental health of people, yeah, I think something where we ask questions, do you have a negative mindset? You know, and get people to start thinking about how they think, because that's certainly something that I do now that I didn't used to do before.
I actually think there is something really powerful here, in the sense that, you know, both you and Laura have this experience, you know, 15, 20 years in this sector. But not only do you have the knowledge and the experience, you have the heart. Because as I mentioned, and I'm saying it publicly, you know, from March, when I talked about March last year, when I talked about what I saw and wanted to put together a clinic to call people, you guys volunteered straight away. So it shows that you have the heart. And we recognize that, as we've said, the COVID has had an impact. And there's probably a conveyor belt of people who are going to be affected. We even have to look at the school kids, the school children who've been denied school, you know, for months. How is that going to affect them? I think that there is definitely a place for some kind of series of questions that you and Laura can put together that we can include in that 5-day free challenge to really help people, because you know that as of 2022, we are set on taking this to a much bigger and wider audience. We have to.
It's interesting because while you were talking, I remembered when COVID hit, and I think it was footage from Italy and Spain that we were seeing mainly. So they were ahead of us in terms of the COVID. And I remember one of the doctors saying, there's going to be a tsunami of mental health difficulties after this. That was the word that was used. I'll never forget that.
Really?
Yeah. Tsunami. Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't feel that our health service as we have it now is, I don't know what you think, Laura, is geared up for it. Mental health has always not been funded fully. So what we're talking about, yes, it's important. People have got to take responsibility.
Well, this is amazing, because imagine, as we're saying, that we're going to be taking our 5-day challenge to the masses, and it's totally free. And within that, they get this little something that enables them to do that quick inventory check and see what their mental state is. And then that way, you know, it's like a litmus test. You get to see and then take action before it's too late.
And I think it would be worth mentioning the impact of COVID as well, because so many people have been impacted by it. Even if you've not had it yourself, a family member might have had it and suffering with the after effects of COVID, which often is long COVID. That could be, it could have affected them mentally. I know a lot of people have been affected physically, but mentally as well. So I think COVID is something that people can relate to now because it's impacted all of us.
Wow.
Even if you've not had it, you've gone through lockdown. So.
Yeah, and it does take its toll. I mean, you know, especially if you are someone who is used to getting up in the morning, you know, going to the train station, getting to work, and then going into the office. And now you've been put on a lockdown where you're supposed to just work from home. And you know, when it first started, I thought about a lot of the young people who, you know, they were renting places that they could just barely afford. So, you know, it was maybe small accommodation. And now they're being told that they got to be there 24/7. Because before they were just, you know, there for a few hours and now out to work. That must have been horrendous.
It was difficult. I mean, I found it difficult, and I've got a house, and it still was difficult. But I meet people. Obviously, when I was doing it under lockdown, loads of people I met over the Zoom system, and they were just in their bedrooms, rented, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was all of that. I mean, people have adjusted, obviously, with time. Lots of people have, but some people haven't.
Yeah, even in that adjustment, you see, if you don't have a mechanism to prove to yourself that you have adjusted well, you might have adjusted, but it might
not well. Yeah, no, I hear you completely. Definitely.
No, I feel as an outcome of this, I feel some kind of mental health checkup from you ladies. I'm deadly serious.
No, I'm laughing because when we spoke about this, I don't think you were aware at the time. It was like Mental Health Day last Sunday, so it's very topical.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm tapped in, so I didn't even know that, but I was like, you know, I'd like you to talk about mental health, and you said, "Well, Tony, what is that because of?" It's mental health.
I assumed you knew. I did.
No,
yeah.
I didn't know. I just tapped in, but you know, I mean, I just want to use that point lastly, actually, to say that one thing that we haven't talked about, and I would, if I would like to invite anyone on a serious note who would like to join our 5-day challenge, because I do think it is a great way for you to anonymously just have a look at how you're thinking. I've never thought about it in quite that clinical way, but I think this is going to be a game changer. So what I wanted to say is that one of the ways that you can ensure that you are actively working on your mental health is to create a vision. Because if you have a vision, if you create a vision for your life, an aspiration that you see yourself attaining, doesn't matter how crazy it might be, but you believe in that vision, and it's a vision that you really wish to attain, and you're willing to commit, and you make that your focus, what that does, it makes you, I truly believe that your vision can pull you towards it, meaning all of your energy, all of your focus, all your strides is towards that. You ain't got time to be distracted by society and the media so much. Does that make sense? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I agree. And I think the idea of purpose as well is you also, you haven't got time for all that, but you also want to ensure that you are balanced and looking at all the pillars that helped you to keep that balance.
Yeah, because your mind is actually, I mean, I don't know if you can remember if this was true for you, but what I found is that people that actually, you know, from the challenge actually now then move on to actually doing the mind reset course itself, often say to me the very first time they do the exercise in terms of looking at their visions for each of the 5 areas of their lives, I often hear people say they've never done that kind of an expansive look at themselves, you know, for like for 2, 3, 4 hours, because you're just looking at each pillar. But even if you just spend 1 hour on each pillar, that's 5 solid hours that you're focusing on nothing else other than aspects of yourself.
And I think, you know, that's incredible that you've just said the key thing then, looking at aspects of yourself, and people don't. And it's strange because I remember I was introduced to it in February last year at the MINDreSET University event. And yeah, I mean, that day that was the day I decided to sign up. So, but yeah, I mean, in fact, I spoke to someone this week who's just started, and they're really excited, but it is hard work. But
if you've never done it before,
that's right? That's the point. But once you do it, you realize how, and you start to wonder, how did I live life without having? And it's interesting you're talking about young people, because I think that's something. In fact, the person I spoke to last night kept saying, "Oh, I wish I'd done this years ago. And, I used to say that as well. But we are where we are, and that's fine. But young people, can you imagine if they start to focus on those pillars from an early age, the difference it can make to their lives?
Absolutely.
I mean, we've got people, younger people in our, but
and not only can I imagine, I've lived it, I've experienced it.
Well, of course you have, yes.
With my children, in terms of what I saw them doing.
Yes, you certainly have.
It was just mind blowing. I mean, look, my daughter wrote. She was the first author in our family. She wrote her book at 19. Like, never even thought, hadn't even crossed one. And that was while she was working full time and recording an album.
But that's because of the mindset that you grew them up with, isn't it? Clearly. Yeah.
This is echoing your point that imagine what we could do.
Yeah.
And it's a great point to sort of close on, because I'm mindful of the time, but in terms of sowing the seed, that let us not just be visionaries for ourselves in terms of having a vision and working hard towards that vision, whatever it is that is your definition and vision of success, but having a vision for others as well, for society.
I like that.
Because that's taking responsibility. I truly believe that life is calling us. We can all see what's going on in the world, and we should all be very concerned because we're on the brink of destruction. And if we're all concerned, how are we going to change things? But the only way that we're going to be able to change things is by taking responsibility. Would you not agree?
I agree. And I love what you just said about having a vision for others, because as a community, what we say we're about is serving others.
But who's really about it? Like proof. So this is where I come back to, let's not talk about it. Let's not be about it. Let's prove it. And
they have a vision for others.
Brother Ishmael, in my book, I write the definition, a new definition for success in this new era of spirituality. 3 areas. 1, having the ability to do what you love. Imagine every day you get the opportunity to do what you love to do and getting paid for it. I mean, that sounds like success to me. But 2, doing whatever that thing is, that honors you. So you can't really, in this new era of spirituality, can you really be a successful drug dealer? Because it's not really honoring you. You're making money, but it's not really honoring you. So I use that as an
good example. Yeah.
And the 3rd area is that whatever you're engaging in as success promotes life and benefits to others. That's for me, a definition that I'm like, I could get down with that vision. So coming back to the world and the state of the planet, I believe COVID and all of the things that we're seeing going on around the globe is Mother Nature's way of crying out to the children, her children. By that, I mean those that will see past the event and get the inner meaning of what's going on. So we've got to take action. Now, here's the thing. You can't take action to save planet Earth if you can't even be responsible for yourself. How's that going to work? So this that we're going through is challenging us to take responsibility for ourselves. Because only when you've gone through the process of learning to take care of not just your health, but the other 4 areas, now you can graduate to taking responsibility for others and your wider community.
100%, Tony.
So we're all on the journey, and we all must, if we are wanting to thrive and experience this abundance mindset, it requires us to stand up for the challenge and say, I'm up for it.
It's a wonderful build up for the challenge, isn't it?
Isn't it just? So on that note, and I wasn't trying to, but since you gave me the cue, I would like to take the 5-day challenge. It's called the abundance mindset. And I say the abundant mindset, and I was thinking about this earlier on today. It's the abundance mindset, but I actually think it's AKA the vision of God for your life. That's really what it is, because God, the creator, the mind that created all of the earth and the stars and the galaxies,
universe,
and the Milky Ways, isn't that a spirit of abundance?
Definitely.
And so if we want that abundance mindset, then it's only when we key into that higher wisdom, that higher mind, that we can see the abundance, because abundance can be all around. But if you're steeped in a poverty mindset, you won't see the flowers on your way to work. You won't see the trees. You won't see the birds. You won't see the sun. You're just going to work. And so I believe that, well, if you'd like to join us, it's going to be taking place in November. It's absolutely free. We've just finished our first ever, and it was an amazing experience. And someone actually experienced something that was almost magical. I say almost, but we're going to do. I'm going to invite her so you can hear it live for yourself as a testimonial. It goes to show that once you make the conscious decision to take responsibility for your mind, literally, it's like it can be like turning a switch off. 1 minute you're in darkness, the next minute you're in the light. So if my team, Natty, or someone could just pop in the group, I think the URL is www.dardarrichsociety.com/5D3. I believe that is it. And I think my team may have disappeared, so I'm going to have to put it in. And I hope it's the correct one, richsociety.com/5D3. Have you got any final words that you'd like to say before we say goodbye to our Facebook and YouTube audience and go quietly to our private group?
Just reiterating what you've just said and making sure everyone is aware that they either have good or bad mental health, but the only person responsible for having good mental health is themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. We have to take responsibility for that. And there's no health without good mental health, really. So just reiterating some of the things that has already come up. And I love the way this has gone, because I think I like the idea of the challenge. It should really get people to start to think about the sort of mindset that they have, and the sort of mindset they have will have an impact on their mental health. Yeah. Or potentially, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So let me just put it on record. So do you
just
think,
to let you know, it's in the chat. Sorry, the ULR is in the chat. Someone's put it in.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you. I was just looking for, I couldn't see it. So that's great. So just as a final note then, will you get together with Laura? And
of course we will.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, you heard it live
Did you hear that, Laura?
And live and direct, they've said yes. So not only are you going to get access to the 5-day challenge, but you're going to be the first people to sample this mental health checker that we're calling it.
Laura says yes.
Right. This is great. Listen, we're going to say to the NHS, listen, if you're not taking care of business for our community, we're going to do it for ourselves. And
we often have to, actually, because that's another conversation in terms of, especially people of color, you really have to do a lot yourself, really.
And the thing is, in doing it for yourself, you shouldn't feel less than. Actually, that's how it should be. Mm-hmm. Like, you should be the primary person that's responsible for you. Well,
most definitely. I agree.
And you should be cool with that.
Yeah.
So, wow, I'm excited. I really can't wait. Thank you so much. Wow, I got more than I bargained with. See, this is the abundance mindset that you always get more than you bargain for.
That's it.
On that note, I want to say thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope we've been able to make something that's not so cool come away, hopefully, with some positivity as to what you can do and how you can benefit and how you can begin to take responsibility for your health. Thank you so much, Suzette and Laura in the background, because you're in on this already. You said you weren't going to join us today, but we still got you in somehow, so you can't get away. It's great. Till next week, when we will be talking about this abundance mindset, God's vision for your life, where abundance is concerned in more detail. I'm going to be bringing to you some stuff that you don't want to miss it. If you want to learn how to key in to the abundance mindset, join me next week. Till then, it's me, Tony Dada, your soul brother from another mother, with the lovely Suzette. Bye for now.
Good night, everyone.